Lauren, my first reaction is like, did he just get a slap on the wrist?
Jason, you are the first person I am talking to after the verdict. I mean, I'm still kind of shaking and in shock right now. And I don't necessarily want to say he got a slap on the wrist because it was very clear that Maureen Comey did not take this as a loss. She made it clear, and she didn't say this exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but it seems like she will be seeking the maximum sentence for the two Mann Act violation charges, which would be 20 years. There is no way in heck that will happen. That's generally for the transportation of minors. If I had to guess, I would say more like an 18-month sentence with time served, which is why I do believe he was celebrating as he should. This was a huge win for the defense, a huge win for Diddy. And I mean, once they read the not guilty on racketeering and the not guilty on the Cassie sex trafficking, I mean, there were gasps in the courtroom. Like it was crazy. And the judge warned everybody to keep their composure, but they couldn't help it. And then Mark Agnifilo, after everything was read, the verdict was read, he stood up and said, my client has been acquitted of very serious charges right now. He deserves to go home. $1 million bail. Let's get him out today. Obviously, Maureen Comey was not happy about that. She said, let's remember the conduct surrounding the charges he was convicted of. And so they have until 1 p.m. today, Jason, to submit their letters as to why he should be released to Two-Star Island on the defense side and why he should remain incarcerated until sentencing on the government side. So that decision will most likely be made by the end of the day today. And the judge looked directly at Combs and he said, Mr. Combs, I understand you don't want to go back to MDC today, do you? And Diddy said, no. It was a moment. I mean, he was like, no. And I caught Justin Combs and Diddy's best friend, Charlucci, on the way out. We weren't supposed to do interviews. I just said, how are you guys feeling? And they just kind of said, overwhelmed and great.
Lauren, when I say blessing, holy cow, are you blessing this show? This is the information that we...
Yeah.
You're telling me 18 months? That's a possibility in time served?
I mean, look, so Jason, that is my guess. This is pure speculation.
Yeah.
Pure speculation. It could be, I'm thinking 18 months to 2 years. I know she is trying to throw the book at him. I don't see that happening at this point, especially with the team of lawyers he's had this entire time. They've been incredible. And a lot of people were questioning the defense's closing argument, how sarcastic it was, how maybe he didn't take it so seriously. But I sat there, Jason, I was looking at those jurors. There were 8 men on that jury. And I said to myself, Mark Agnifilo is speaking to the men. And there was also one woman who really seemed to smirk a lot when the defense was cross-examining some of the witnesses who were a bit flimsy. So I was like, he's talking to the 8 men and that one woman that smirked. He knew what he was doing. He spoke common sense, and I believe that it worked.
Lauren, just for my edification and just the makeup of the jury, 8 men, you said. What's the racial composition of this jury?
It was fairly diverse. It's tough because the entire trial, we saw 18 jurors because the alternates were on the top row. So I think it was, there was an Indian man. There was, I believe, 2 or 3 Black people on the jury, and then maybe 1 or 2 Spanish people on the jury. And then it was predominantly white men. So yeah, it was interesting because also there were analytical people on the jury. There was an accountant, there was an investment analyst, which normally those work better for the prosecution because you're looking at the charges and you're seeing how essentially it does meet the predicate of breaking the law. But I think the jury, they did use some common sense here, and they're looking at maybe the predicate act of drug distribution under the RICO. And they're like, well, I guess if drug distribution is handing maybe, a joint to a friend and saying, can you smoke it? Like, who else is guilty of that? So they possibly were using their common sense. I don't know. I mean, I really want to interview a juror. I am dying to do that. So we'll see.
Having covered the trial, do you think they've reached a fair verdict? Not the right verdict. I'm not asking you to judge that, but do you think they've been fair and we should be sympathetic towards the jury?
Jason, it's a loaded question, and without having any of my personal feelings, I guess, come out for this, I think that it's been one of those cases where what this man has done allegedly since the late 90s into the early 2000s. That's when I did feel like a lot of the more serious crimes took place, like the Club New York shooting, the quad shooting, the stampede, the basketball stampede, and then you've got the aspect of the Cassie Ventura video, and that just tugs at your heart. I mean, it was so difficult to watch over and over. With all that being said, there were times I was sitting in court and I didn't quite understand why this was a federal case. The fact that baby oil was pretty much talked about, the biggest piece of evidence that was talked about in this trial more than anything else, the baby oil and the Astroglide, that was a bit odd. And again, it's not your typical racketeering case. It wasn't quite as open and shut. And same with the sex trafficking. You've got these text messages where even though maybe she didn't mean it, Cassie would say that she wanted to be there. Same with Jane. And we don't know her state of mind exactly. We can only guess. So I think that the jury, they should be respected. They did use a lot of common sense, and I believe they only use the evidence inside the courtroom. And that's what you're supposed to do. They did not think of any of this outside activity, and they came to their decision.
And so
it is loud. Sorry, do you hear it here? It is so loud.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Karen Reed trial and the large crowds that were invested in the guilt or innocence of Karen Reed. Is it the same thing going on here in New York as it relates to Diddy? Is there a crowd outside, and what side are they on? Are they disappointed? Are they celebratory? How would you describe the onlookers or New York?
Well, it's not to the degree of Karen Reed, and there is no buffer zone around the federal courthouse. But in the front, I'm in the back, and you can kind of see this is where a lot of the press is standing because they're waiting for the attorneys to come out, possibly family members. But in the front, you will see a lot of free puff people, and they wear shirts and they are unapologetic. And it was no secret that they cheered very loudly after the verdict was read.
And so, final question, I'll let you go, and I just thank you so much for blessing us in the show. But what? Because my memory's fuzzy. How long has Diddy been in jail? And so when we say potentially time served, how much time has he been incarcerated? I can't even remember when this. I know there was a raid, and then there was a delay, and then he was arrested. How long has this been going on?
Yes, he was arrested in September of 2024. So, I mean, that's about 8 or 9 months. So, yeah, he's been in there for some time. And, I have a feeling this judge has been incredibly fair. This entire trial, I have been so impressed with him. I mean, a lot of the times you can see where the judge would kind of side with the government on a lot of different aspects. He was not like that. And so I can see him releasing Diddy on house arrest to Two-Star Island. I cannot see him allowing him to travel back and forth to LA, Miami, and New York like the defense wanted. But I can see a shot at him getting out on house arrest in Miami.
Lauren, thank you so much. Don't miss a second of Fearless. Hit that like button and subscribe to keep up with our latest content.